Welcome to the Stuff and Things Podcast, your home for all stuff related to your favorite things in entertainment. Now, here are your hosts.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Stuff and Things Podcast, House of the Dragon edition. I am Sam. Joining me to discuss the latest episode from the Game of Thrones spin-off is my partner in crime, it's Stefan.
Hey buddy, how's it going?
Yeah, not too bad, man. And you?
I am pretty good. Yeah, I'm pretty good.
Oh, I'm delighted to hear that. So, everybody, this is House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 3. We are going to dive into it straight away, because there is obviously, with a show like this, a lot to talk about. But we'll get the tradition out the way first. House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 3. The title of the episode was...
The Burning Mill.
Yeah.
I had to really think about that because we were mucking around before we started recording and I almost didn't say the right thing.
Well, that would have been cruel. That would have been cruel. So, the Burning Mill, so let's start there. The episode kind of depicts early on a couple of minor houses having a squabble. And
yeah,
they have declared for different people. Now, there's various levels of intrigue and interest to this. So one side is declared for Rhaenyra, the other side have obviously declared for I'm going to say the Queen and the King. So one side's declared for the King.
Yeah.
With that, it is interesting from the point of view of they're obviously bordering with each other. There's obviously tension between the two houses anyway. I think later in the episode...
You moved our stones. Yeah, it was all a bit...
Yeah,
okay.
I feel like later on there was alluded to that they've basically been kicking lumps out of each other for centuries. So clearly it was like, oh look, they just used this as an excuse to attack each other. Now, what was interesting in this was, and this is a little bit kind of... You saw a character... and I don't think he was named in the show, but based on everything I'm seeing online, people are kind of pointing towards him as a character from the books called Bloody Ben.
Oh, okay.
Now, he's the one who was being a bit antagonistic, and the guy drew a sword on him, and he was just like, really? Really? You wouldn't dare?
Yeah.
Now...
and then the next scene is just a field of death.
I know, right?
Yeah. I was like, oh, maybe he did.
Yeah, maybe clearly he dared, and clearly it didn't go well. Now, what was interesting is, in the show, and this is going to be a test of memory now, do you remember, before the time jump, there was a young kind of lord, like he was a boy, who was at court, and wanted Rhaenyra's hand, and he was like a young boy, and then people were mocking him, so he drew his sword and was ready to fight, even as like this young boy. Do you remember him?
Vaguely, very vaguely. As you say it, I kind of remember thinking it, yeah.
Yeah, well, Bloody Ben, that is his dad. So this character who was obviously very loyal to Rhaenyra, he obviously didn't marry her, as we all know. But he went off, he was this minor lord, and his son is Bloody Ben, as we see in this. Now, in the books, he's like 12 years old, and he leads people in the battle. He's like an absolute lunatic. They've obviously aged him up a bit for the show, which is good. I think, yeah.
Although it could have been quite amusing if that scene had been done by like 12-year-olds instead.
Oh yeah, no, it could have been, but I mean,
it would have made you made my stones all different, wouldn't it?
It would have, yeah, it would have changed the whole dynamic really. But he, I mean, I don't know. Looking at him, I always find this really difficult because I'm so old now. Everyone looks like a baby to me. But I mean, I would have thought it's sort of late teens, 16 to 18. I don't know.
Yeah, I would have put them in kind of like the older teens, but not quite fully grown adult yet. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that kind of works better for the show, that sort of age. Because still young enough that it's weird that he's that young and crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, he gets the moniker Bloody Ben because he does just like charge in the battle like a loon. He's like the character in the books a lot of people love because he's like really calm, placid, lovely, like really sort of just this nicest guy in the Seven Kingdoms. But then the fight starts and he becomes this like raged lunatic. He's like a complete like Jekyll and Hyde, and it's just a fun character.
They're always good characters.
So they didn't name him in this, but everyone's kind of pointing and saying it is him. And if it is, I'm really happy because that's a character I think everyone's going to really enjoy in the show. Because I was a little bit, I don't know, it's probably just me, but I'm a little bit sad I didn't get to see a fight. The argument followed by the field of carnage was like, oh, I wanted to see the carnage.
That would have been a good battle. Yeah.
So I was a little bit sad about that, but yeah, the place is wrecked.
So we're assuming that the kid that kind of almost started the whole thing survived then, if we were thinking it's a
I'd assume so, yeah. I mean, it could just be that they put this in like just two random characters and people are thinking it's him and it's not, and now everyone there is dead. I don't know.
Yes.
They did say that like, oh, so-and-so, like, Lords died, and I was like, oh, okay. But of course that could have been one of the fathers. So it was kind of
there's a lot of lords in this. It could have been anyone.
what was interesting again, and this is just from a kind of a level of nerdy, I guess, was this show does a lot of stuff, and I do think it's a very well written show because it shows you things on a regular basis which actually has a greater significance. So in this, the very obvious significance is we are seeing Seven Kingdoms divided. House against house, neighbour against neighbour. We got to see that depicted quite clearly in this. But the other thing is there's been a lot of talk so far about the Riverlands being key. And the Riverlands, whoever takes the Riverlands is going to win this war sort of thing. Whoever gets control of the Riverlands.
Yes.
And one of the things that these are two minor houses in the Riverlands. And they are divided. They are, like I said, one for the Queen, one for the King. And they're fighting each other. Now, they really should be obeying their liege lord, which is, I think it's House Tully, isn't it? Or, no, is it Tully? Yeah, I think it's Tully.
I think so. I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yeah. And they should be obeying the liege lord of them. But then we get alluded to in this episode that the liege lord is basically old, senile, not very with it anymore. So people are doing whatever they want.
Yep.
Now, that is kind of interesting because it sets up this real... There's no clear direction in the Riverlands. So Daemon showed up with a dragon, basically walked into a castle, Harrenhal, and was like, this is mine. They were like, yep, fine. We kneel to you, whatever.
Instant, right, fair enough. Okay, cool.
Yeah, no worries. Now, that castle's fucked up.
Mate, he's walking around his castle, and I'm like, I swear he was going off to raise an army, and instead he's gone to a derelict castle. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And then he sees the kind of servant walking around, and I'm like, there's people in here?
Yeah, and there's a guard who's like, who are you? Just beats the crap out of him. It's like, oh, come on, Daemon. You don't need to just beat up everyone everywhere you go. But it was funny.
To answer his question. Yeah.
He's there in his badass armor, sword drawn, walking around, walks in on them eating, and they're like, oh, do you want to join us? Yeah. And he's like, I've fought many a battle, I'm not going to be taken down by poisoned peas. They're like, poison? Okay, whatever.
Yeah, have you not noticed? We actually welcomed you in, it's fine.
Yeah, it's like, you weirdo. So there's several aspects about that which I find quite interesting. So Daemon's gone there. Obviously, him and Rhaenyra had words, but he has gone there with the purpose of, I'm going to raise an army.
Yes.
He says it quite clearly. I'm here to, basically bring the Riverlands on side. I want to see the liege lord. I want to meet with these people. Maybe the presence of the crown and a dragon will, make people realise whose side they should be on. I found that interesting. I found that he was doing that, but there's several other aspects to this which is worth noting. One of them, he insists on being your grace.
Yeah.
And that was kind of, I don't know. That was kind of a strange thing, like, because everyone in the realm knows him as Prince Daemon.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a no, I'm your grace. Oh, sorry, your grace. I assumed you were. Yes, well, assumption. We've learned that could get you in trouble. It's like, oh, jeez.
Yeah, it feels very much like an ego-y kind of thing for Daemon, isn't it?
Yeah, very.
He seems to be very much ego-driven.
Yeah, but also, that conversation he had with Rhaenyra before he left, where she was like, "You're supporting my claim, Daemon. It's my throne, not yours." And now here he is showing up in the Riverlands. I'm basically your grace. I'm the king. She's the queen.
Yeah,
we're a couple, sort of thing. So, yeah, his mindset's kind of changed. On that, he appears to be pushing that forward. I've never been overly convinced on that. He's not a character I like, probably because I don't like the actor. But he also has a real. It's like finding his motivations I find quite difficult. So
I question them. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to look past because of the fantasy Targaryen, inter-family breeding thing. You got to kind of look past that because that's just what they did.
That's just who they are.
Yeah,
yeah.
So I got to look past that because otherwise, that's just like I don't like any of them. They're all freaking weird.
Well, that is true.
But at least Rhaenyra was trying to put a bit of difference in the bloodline. But yeah, so with this, it's like. I don't fully understand where he is with this because most of his actions since being with Rhaenyra has been to support her, but then she confronted him about this last week, and now all of a sudden I'm your grace. So so that felt weird because there's different ways you can put it. He's either trying to put together his authority there to make sure they all fall in line. I mean, the freaking huge dragon he's got, I think, would do that.
It helps. I find like that would help.
Yeah.
Like, I have this massive dragon. You're kind of like, yeah, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, when that guy knelt straight away, it was like, yep, no worries. Like, your ancestor let you wreck this place. I mean, that's a little bit of like a Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon history. Is like Harrenhal was the stronghold for one of the great houses in Westeros. And when Aegon the Conqueror, when they sort of like a bit in history, they wouldn't surrender, just absolutely leveled the place with dragonfire. So that castle then passed to the Strongs, who we met in season 1.
Well, yeah, the Strongs are actually the father of Rhaenyra's children, aren't they? So they're kind of...
Whoa, you're just throwing out rumour there, man. Come on. Yeah, they are. Yeah, any of them with dark hair, they're strong.
Yeah, they're kind of Look at the Targaryens; they're beautiful, blonde, brown. Yeah.
Larys the Clubfoot is in essence the lord of this place, but as that guy,
but they have no loyalty to him at
all. No, and they're right. I mean, we know they're right. The guy's an absolute snake, and he did kill his father and his brother in a fire. And they were just like, look around this place. We struggle to start a fire in chimneys in this place because of how wet it is and damp it is.
I love that line. Have you seen how damp it is? They died by fire.
Yeah, it was just like that.
That's brilliant.
He killed them, and he's just like, we know he killed them. Everyone here knows it. We have no loyalty to him whatsoever. So I like that. I mean, that was kind of straightforward, and basically I like the fact that everyone knows what he is. But there's interesting with Daemon in this episode where he is actually... well, there's two ways to go on this. I'm going to go the first way, and then I'll bring the second. He's being haunted by what he did. I don't think of him as having a conscience. But in this, he kind of... I'm guessing falls asleep into a dream or is like sort of daydreaming, and he hears a noise and he wanders around the castle only to find a young Rhaenyra, nice to see that actress back, Millie Alcock, sewing that child's head back on. And Daemon just watches.
Gross thing. Yeah.
Now, that to me suggests he is being haunted by this. Like, he is actually sorry for what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Do you go with that, or do you think there's something else happening?
The fact he wakes up and he's got that woman's kind of just stood there watching him.
Yeah.
My first instinct was, oh, maybe he did take some sort of poison or hallucinogenic or something. And then I'm like, do we have witches that can kind of do that whole mind tricky thing? So yeah, I don't see him as a character who has a conscience or the morals and stuff like that to kind of go down that. So yeah, I did wonder if maybe with the woman behind him watching, is that if it was he's been hallucinating, maybe he was drugged.
Yeah,
maybe there was maybe not poison, but maybe there was some sort of drug. Because isn't her line? She says to him like, "You will die here."
Yeah, she was creepy.
That's welcoming.
Yeah, now little Miss Frankie foreshadow. So I don't know. I mean, we know across Westeros there is magic. There are people that can do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. You know, in Game of Thrones, the Red Priestesses. We know there's magic across Essos. Dragons are magical creatures. So we know this is a land of myth and magic and things like that. So witches, I don't think is a stretch. You know, there's reference to them all over the place. That character from the minute he arrived was kind of like looking at him like, who do you think?
Everyone's knelt down to him, and he just kind of walks in and stares at him, and I'm like, well, you have my suspicions now. Okay, I've clocked you, right? Yeah. Keep an eye on that character sort of moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then she delivers that line, like you said, like he comes around from that kind of daydream, if you like, where he's sort of wandering, and she says, like, "You're gonna die here."
I'm like, oh.
Yeah, no.
It's like you say, the Frankie foreshadow. I'm like, oh, season 3, there's going to be a battle here. You know?
Yeah, I mean, we know that the Riverlands, we know there's a confrontation coming because Sir Criston Cole is leading out a garrison from Kingsland into the Riverlands. They've identified the same way Daemon identified, is that the Riverlands is key. So they are leading their forces out from King's Landing to the Riverlands with a view of basically doing what Daemon's trying to do. And that is get the Tullys and get all the houses there on side, because that would, add 20 odd, I think he says like 20 to 40,000 men to their cause. And, as much as a battle between dragons, it's going to be fought largely with men on the ground.
Which is said a couple of times. Yeah, a couple of times they say, or they allude to the fact that a battle between the dragons is just going to be a loss for everyone.
Yeah,
it's the men on the ground that are going to kind of do what's needed.
What I find interesting about that is that dragons are basically the nuclear deterrent of this time in place, because Rhaenyra, I think, even says like the threat is more powerful than the reality. Like, we send out dragons doing this, they'll send out their dragons doing this, and before you know it, just thousands and thousands are dead, and no one's any better off. Now, she's absolutely right, and as you think about warfare in the world, the real world now, you fire a nuke into someone, and they fire a nuke back, it's just millions dead, and...
Yeah, no one's winning that.
No. So it's the deterrent. So she's thinking of the dragons as that. I did have to laugh, though, with Sir Criston Cole. We're introduced to a new character, which is another Hightower, which is Otto's son, has showed up.
Gwaine?
And so he's a bit of a cocky son of a bitch.
Yes, doesn't particularly like the Sir Criston, the hand.
No.
Who, I've got to be honest with you, he's like little badge thing for the hand.
Yeah.
The thing on the top, the necklacey kind of trim at the top of his armour, that does look cool. I don't like the character.
I just hate him. I can't. I just hate him. Like my Lord Hand, I just want to smack the crap out of him every time I see him.
And it's the fact that we first kind of see his scene where he's walking through the tower.
Yeah.
And he's obviously running late. great start.
Yeah.
But like, no one appears to take him serious whatsoever.
Well,
like, there's no kind of like, they see him coming down the stairs, and those two kind of men are just stood there like, oh.
See, now, I think I misinterpreted that. See, I interpreted that initially as no one respects him. Everyone knows he sent that guy off on his own to die, basically to cover for his own. Like, they all know who should have been on guard duty that night. They all probably know what he was really doing. So I took that as he's now lost all respect. Like, he sent an honourable man off to die, and just to cover his own ass. However, he then walks into that room and says, "You've recruited new men to the Kingsguard." And then I realised that these men who have been recruited are all the pissed up idiot friends of the king. So when they were lounging around not paying any attention, it's just because they're crap. It's because they're not actual soldiers and guards. They are his mates. They're hangers-on. Yeah. They're like, I mean, later on, they grab the king, take him to a bar and a brothel. Like, they are his kind of... It's ridiculous. Like, he's basically, rather than surrounding himself with dedicated knights to protect him and his family, he's literally brought his mates in who he drinks with, who just kiss his ass.
I can't imagine that's going to go well.
Well, you
like,
think
at some point you feel like that's going to go bad.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And all they do is tell him what he wants to hear. Like, there's that scene where he's ready to... So Criston Cole comes up with this plan to take the army and go. He's on about, I'm going to go on my dragon. I'm fierce like everyone else. And everyone's like, yeah, of course you are, but you're also the king. And, like, if you were to perish or anything like that, that's terrible. So you need to stay here. But he gets it in his head he's going to go anyway. And Larys the Clubfoot walks in, and all of his, like, mates who are now his Kingsguard are like, yeah, the king's getting ready to go. What of it? You know, all like lad culture to the max. Larys walks in, spins one of his kind of lies and yarns, like, oh, people are whispering. You know,
he is very, very good at this, isn't he? Like, he has got epic Littlefinger vibes.
Yeah, I think he's worse than that. Like, Littlefinger, I could understand his sole objective was power for himself. And he wasn't a strong fighter, and he wasn't anything else, so he manipulated people to do that for him. Like, oh, that house is in my way. That house doesn't like that house. Right, I'll manipulate a situation where they kill them, and then that one's out of my way. You know, he just kind of did that. Now, Larys, so far anyway, I cannot see what his clear objective is. You'd assume his power, but the guy's a freak. Like, he is an absolute creepy little bastard.
See, at first, I thought his game plan was Alicent.
Yeah, but that doesn't appear to be.
But now I'm like, no, that doesn't seem to be the kind of where he's going for. And I'm like, is he another one that, like, you know, he wants the power for himself? Or I don't quite know where that's going.
No. So I always find characters where I can't work out their motivation. Sometimes it's intriguing. And other times it's like, it's scary. Like, I don't know what this guy's motivation is. Like, he killed his brother and his father. In essence, he did that, like, for Alicent and stuff.
Yes.
And then he...
That's where I kind of thought maybe that's what his motivation was. But now he's still going around. He hasn't got her, but he's now still going around trying to sort out bits and pieces and meddling here and manipulating there, and I'm like, why? What is the reason for it?
He gets in the king's head, and the king appoints him Master of Whisperers. So in essence, Spy Master. And so, in a way,
which is a cool job. To be fair, that's one of the cool jobs.
But what's interesting is, in a way, he kind of, maybe he's achieved what he was after. Maybe that was where he was going. Maybe that's what he wanted, to be raised up to the small council, Master of Whisperers. You know, maybe that was where he was heading all along. And now he's kind of like, oh, thank you. You know, you do me this great honour. And I'm thinking, you've done that yourself.
Yeah, you wanted to be there. You've done this for yourself. But I wonder if that is his rule.
Yeah, the whole thing he says to him was so, like, some people are saying how brave you are going out, but there are some that believe that you're doing this because you've been manipulated into doing this. So, your mother rules with, like, Prince Salman by her side, and he's like, what? And you're kind of like, I know what this king's insecurities are. I'm just going to play on them all the time.
Massively.
So he got rid of Otto. Like, that was Clubfoot. His manipulation, his whispers made
He's your dad's hand, not your hand. Yeah. He's your dad's hand, all that stuff, yeah.
And now he's starting on his brother and his mother. If you think about it, that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
So he's got rid of Otto. Now he's basically trying to drive a wedge. Some people, he's like, well, who are these people? He said, it doesn't matter. But, rumours like this spread and they need to be, cut out root and stems. Like, well, you deal with it. Of course, my liege. Of course, sire,
Yeah.
So
there'll be a wedge driven between Alicent and Aemon and Aegon.
Yeah. Well, he's trying. I think he's trying to get to a point where the only person the king listens to is him. I think that's where his goal is. I think it's a kind of, I'm gonna keep you safe. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. He was the one who went and found who killed his child. So there's a kind of
yes, that's true.
A kind of like, I owe him. So he's got his trust, the king, and then he's saying to him like these things about Otto Hightower, and then he feels, and then when he fires Otto and Otto like sounds off and leaves, that just kind of vindicates it in the king's mind, like, oh yeah, I was right, listen to him go off. I'm the king. Who the hell does he think he is? So that kind of makes him think that Larys was right about that. And now Larys has come to him with this, and that's going to be in his head. So he stayed like, no, maybe I'll go out another day. And so
and all his friends are like, yeah, of course, yeah.
Ass kissers, absolute the worst.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So this is random thing. The king and his ass kisser mates are taking a squire out to get him laid. Very weird, very random. And when they're going out,
that's when before that happens, there's this whole thing about the king's like, yeah, but you guys are guards now, so therefore, you're basically not allowed to go and sleep around and do things like that. And they're like, oh, yeah. Oh, wait.
Yeah, they don't know if he's joking or not, so they kind of panic in that moment. And clearly he was joking, because then he's off out with them to a bar and a brothel.
Yeah.
Now, when we go to that bar, there's a random guy telling a story that he's the bastard son of the late king.
He's the half-brother of Daemon and all that, and I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Yeah.
Is he full of it, this guy? Is this just a random throwaway thing, or is there something there?
I honestly do not know. Like, there's like the quotes that I've thrown at him, like, oh yeah, look, you can tell by the blonde hair, and it's like, I'm like half.
Yeah.
And all this, and you're like, well, technically, you look at Jace and all that, they've got the dark hair because they aren't full Targaryen.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, there's links there where you're like, it could be true. Yeah. But then the king walks in, and he's kind of like, oh, grab the king. Oh, yeah, hi. And his mates ripping him like, oh, go say hello to your nephew.
Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant. Go say hello to your nephew.
Yeah, there's your other nephew. Now, if the king had walked in, overheard him and killed him or something, then that scene would have made some sort of sense to me, in the sense of just someone running their mouth and like trying to steal a bit of coin by telling stories.
Yeah.
And he gets his ass handed to him, bad timing on his part. But he doesn't. The king then goes about his business, and that guy just drifts in the background. So at the moment, I don't see any relevance to that scene whatsoever. But
no.
There's very, like there must be a reason.
There's something in the back of my head where I'm like, this guy's going to turn up in some way.
Yeah, like, just why otherwise?
Do you put something like in there just as a throwaway, or is it a case of no, come on, there's something in here for a reason. Like we watch a lot of television and a lot of movies, and we do a lot of podcast shows about movies and stuff. And from that, I've kind of learned that things aren't just done for no reason. Like if they make the point to put an entire scene like this before the king gets there, there's got to be a reason for it.
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna have to sort of circle that and wait and see. But I'd like to know. I'm intrigued. So, the other thing that happens is he finds his brother there hugging that woman again.
It's weird.
So weird.
Damn weird. It's not right. Yeah.
And he kind of mocks his brother.
Rips him for it. He rips him for it. Yeah. She's so good. It's the only one he'll ever lay with, and all this sort of stuff. That
was weird. Like that for the first, like, his brother's obviously a stronger minded fighter, and him just getting up and walking off the way he did felt very like, you know, you're not going to embarrass me. You know, you're not going to. Yeah, it was a weird scene. The king was a dick in that scene.
I mean, I didn't need to see that much of the prince, I'll be completely honest, but I was like, in my head, I'm like, oh, here we go, this is going to be one of those, you know, well-placed kind of item on the side scene, so you don't, oh no, it's Game of Thrones, I forgot, there it is.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, it's just the fact, like you say, he just gets up and goes, you can have her then, and walks off.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, is that the king acting like that because of what we've heard Larys say to him?
Yeah.
Is he kind of giving that crap? Is the wedge already being driven in there? And I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to get interesting.
Well, I think so. I think the minute he sees him and starts mocking him, it's because of this. I'm the king. I can do whatever the fuck I like. Who do you think you are? Look at you. Look how pathetic you are. All these rumours about, you know, you ruling in my stead. Ha, ha, ha. You're right. I think Larys the Clubfoot is weaving his thing straight away. The king's obviously drunk and just behaving awfully, and his brother smartly walks away, but at the same
slapping time, like he deserved. Yeah,
but at the same time, you know that's going to leave a mark. That's kind of okay. All right, I'll remember that.
The prince, so the prince is going to remember that. He's noted that one down. He's like, right, okay.
Yeah, so
that's strike one. Keep going, brother. Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting. Now, over on Dragonstone, Rhaenyra buries the twins together after they died fighting. One for her, one trying to kill her. There's a little comment, a little line which I liked, which is like, oh, he sullies, his grave by burying them together, and she's like, I can't be mad at him for keeping his oath, which I kind of liked.
Yep, I like that, and I've got to mention you sent me a link to an interview.
Yeah.
About that fight scene, and we were talking last week about who won the fight. It was difficult to keep up, and then you find out that no, they both had identical injuries.
Yeah.
And the idea is that you're not meant to know who bloody won the fight. Yeah. And you're like, that's so well done.
Yeah,
the fact that even if you're watching it frame by frame, they get the same injuries.
Yeah.
So well done.
Yeah, the showrunner has revealed to everybody that it was Eric who was loyal to Rhaenyra who won, and then killed himself afterwards, apologising to his grace, to her grace. So we do know who won, thanks to the showrunner, but purely from us watching it, you were not supposed to know. You were supposed to be left completely like, oh, we don't know, and they choreographed it, and it was brilliant. Like that scene was exceptional. Feel for the twins, they're out of work now, but they did a good job.
Yeah, they get to do their last scene, their last paycheck, laying in their grave together. It's all good.
Yeah, bit of dirt being thrown on you. What's that between friends?
Exactly.
So we have that on Dragonstone now. Rhaenyra is talking to Rhaenys, and Rhaenys is basically saying,
"Yep,
what are you laughing at?" Me getting the names wrong.
You get, yeah, because I was thinking in my head, like, oh, crap, Rhaenyra and Rhaenys, and then she goes and talks to Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
And I'm, oh,
yeah, no, I'm getting it. I got it. Right, so Rhaenys basically is kind of wise counsel. Is kind of like the men.
Her lines in this are fucking brilliant. Yeah.
The men are like getting ready for war, and at some point, no one will even know what started it. And she's like, well, it started it when my throne was usurped from me. And she's like, or was it when, Luke died? Or when Luke took, what's his name's eye?
Yeah,
or
I've got it here. So
when...
that's enough. They, she says about young men have taken the bit in their teeth. They wish to avenge, to punish, and soon they will not even remember what it was that began the war in the first place. Rhaenyra's like, well, that's easy enough. They usurped my throne.
Yeah.
To her replies, that is one answer. Or was it when the child was beheaded? Or when Aemon killed Luke? Or when Luke took Aemon's eye? Yeah, we teeter now at the point where none of it will matter and the desire to kill them and burn takes hold. And you're like, that's such a great little kind of...
Yeah.
It's such an easy kind of scene, just two people talking to each other. But you're like, yeah, she's completely spot on.
No, she is. She nails it in the sense of we need to try, if we can, to avoid this escalating. Also, there's a small council meeting in Dragonstone where, all the men are like, let's go, let's fight, come on, get the dragons out there, let's fuck them up, set fire to everything. And Rhaenyra's kind of like, thank you for your counsel, I'm going to consider it. And Rhaenys really puts them in their place as well. Like, she is the daughter of, like, the man who was the greatest king in our history. He reigned longer than even the Conqueror, and he was the conciliatory. He was measured in everything that he did. He didn't go diving into war, so, like, don't be trying to lecture her on ruling.
Yeah, maybe you should remember all that.
Yeah, and I thought, that was good. That was well said. Like, all your counsel is worth shit. Like, she's the one who's going to make
pretty much. Yeah, love that.
She has an exchange. She goes to see her husband, and she's like, it's difficult. Basically, her court's like ready to fight. She needs you there.
Yeah.
He seems kind of almost obsessed with getting back on the water. He's like, I'd rather fight 100 battles than, this, that, and the other.
But he doesn't seem too happy about the fact his kids aren't getting on boats straight away.
Yeah, no, this is the thing. Like, he is obviously a proud sailor, and he's the sea snake, the Lord of Driftmark, and he wants his house to continue in that vein. And the heir is like, had never been on a boat. It's like, well, I don't think Rhaenyra would object to us changing and naming a girl as the heir. Now, I find that interesting because Rhaenys obviously isn't stupid. No. I think she knows that, black and blonde looks like us. Young brunette boy. By the way, the fact his name is Joffrey keeps, like, giving me some sort of twitch every time. Like, it ain't his fault, but, like, every time I hear, like, young Joffrey's going to inherit, I'm like, just kill the little son of a bitch.
Yeah, don't let him do it. Don't let him do it. Just PTSD, trust me.
Yeah.
Don't let him do it.
Hear the name Joffrey and I panic. But yeah, and she kind of...
Anyone else? Yeah.
But she alludes to, like, we could do this, and, Rhaena could inherit, and he's like, Rhaena, the Lord of Driftmark? Which I'm not sure if that was just a reaction to the idea of a girl taking over, which I don't think Rhaenys would have found too funny, but I don't know.
No, considering how this has all started and her backstory, if he was to turn around and go, you're having a laugh, and you can't put a woman on the throne? You can imagine she would not take that well.
No. So that was a strange exchange, but like I said, he seems almost obsessive about getting his boat fixed, getting himself back out there. And he's like, I got stuff to do, and like marches off, and she's sort of trying to hold everything together. She's like trying to hold the reins, trying to like, we can stop this from becoming an all-out conflict of like carnage everywhere. And to that end, she convinces Rhaenyra to maybe seek out Alicent to try and have a conversation to try and rein all of this in, like before it gets worse. And
yeah, now when this kind of plan is hatched, at any point in your mind are you like, this is a good idea? Because I gotta be honest with you, as soon as the kind of plan was hatched and she goes off and talks to the White Worm about it all, in my head I'm like, bad idea. This is the bad idea. It's going badly. Bad idea.
Well, there's two aspects to it, right? One, I know she was going to be okay because otherwise the series ends very differently than a book. So that's one thing. Like it's kind of like,
yeah, that helps.
Yeah, we're 3 episodes into season 2. It's been renewed for a season 3. She's going to be fine.
Chances are she walks away from this.
Yeah. So that was kind of like one thing, and I apologize to everyone for that. I know that's like uber cynical. So yeah, it's like we got 5 or 6 of the main characters on the ship. I think we're going to be fine, sort of level. Now, the second aspect to it was, I was wondering how this would work, because like Mysaria, like you said, the White Worm was like, oh well, yeah, I can, I managed to get your husband on there, no problem at all, because of the fishing boats, no one even bats an eyelid. And she's like, oh, what if people recognise me? And I love that about, if you're not dressed like a queen or dressed like a woman to catch a man's attention, you'd be amazed at how little notice anyone will pay to you. And then we see her wearing the uniform of like the Sept, which, kind of famously was worn by Hannah Waddingham in Game of Thrones, with like the shame bell.
Oh,
shame.
What a woman.
Shame.
Yep.
And so seeing her just walk through with that, he's the guy I felt sorry for, her guard, because he's like there with her like, all of this is on me. I'm literally in the enemy capital city right now, surrounded by people on all sides who will kill her the minute they see her, and I'm here with a dagger.
I've got one dagger up my sleeve, and I am just praying for good outcomes.
Like, there's part of me is kind of like, okay, so she knew it was dangerous, so she knows she's got to take a guard with her. But what the hell does she think that one guy's going to do? I mean, he might be the most badass in the Seven Kingdoms, but he's going to friggin' struggle.
But he only has a dagger against an entire city.
We didn't see like the conversation with him, but I imagine it was along the lines of, "This is my plan." And he's like, "Great, brilliant, can't wait, thank you,
have fun,
thank you so much for inviting me to this death trap." Are
you sentencing me to death? Have I done something wrong?
Yeah,
aware of.
Have I irked you like the twins? Have I done something wrong? But anyway, they march their way through, and just like Missandei says, like no one notices them. No one.
I did love that. Dressed like a queen or a whore, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Otherwise,
no one's going to notice you, and they were right. She just walked straight through, straight into the Sept, and we see Alicent there lighting the candles, which we've seen before, and she does go and sit with her. Now, she pulls a knife on her. On her initially. And she's like, what are you doing? She's like, well, if you yell out, then they're going to arrest me and probably kill me, but you'll be dead first. And she's like looking at her, and she's like, okay, this hasn't started well, has it? She's like, I didn't start well. And I'm thinking, this is so good. Like,
it didn't start well. You've pulled a knife out on her, and you want peaceful communication.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's like such a great start. Like, she literally arrived to kill her. And she's like, so what did you think to this scene then? Because I felt this scene was both incredibly well acted. Again, these two have got great screen chemistry. You can tell they get on well in real life, because the friends aspect shines through even in conflict, which I like.
Yep.
The other part of this scene, which I thought was so good, is that there's a realization, I think, on both sides, that Rhaenyra is now, oh shit, you're not lying. You really did hear him say something and you've got it wrong, which is a massive realization for her, because up to now it's just like, you're lying to me. There's no way on earth my father said anything like that. And Alicent now has a doubt in her mind. Alicent now is like, I heard what I heard, but shit, are you telling me he wasn't saying what I think he was saying? So both of them have kind of now got a different perspective on everything that's going on. But, I mean, what did you think? I don't want to put words in your mouth. What was your thoughts on the overall, on all this scene, what's going on?
So I was watching this with the wife. The wife actually really enjoys the House of the Dragon.
Oh, brilliant.
We've only watched about 3 episodes of Game of Thrones, and she enjoyed those, but she has really got into this. I'm like, that's fine. We'll watch all this first, and then we'll get back to Game of Thrones. That's fine.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I had to kind of remind her a little bit, though, because she was like, but she's lying. That's not what happened. And I was like, no, you got to remember that at this moment in time, both queens are working off of exactly what they believe happened.
Yeah.
Like, Alicent went into that room. She spoke to the king before he died. He spoke to her. And she has taken what he said, and she has acted on what he said.
Yeah.
However, the king didn't realise he was talking to her, so therefore, Queen Rhaenyra is also very much a case of, I'm going with what I believe was meant to happen.
Yep.
So it's neither of them is technically wrong, yet at the same time, neither of them is actually right.
Well,
and
Rhaenyra
in this
right.
scene, Rhaenyra is right. However, Alicent fully believes she is right because of what she kind of spoke with the king about.
Yeah.
And it's in this scene where you kind of suddenly see that all really play out.
Yeah.
And like you say, the realization kind of dawns on both of them at the same time.
Yeah, the prince who was promised prophecy, and you see it hit Rhaenyra's face of like,
wait a minute, that's the book. Yeah.
Like, I know what's happened. Like, I know what he said. And I now know, like, you've got this wrong, Alicent, and I thought that was so good.
Yes. Because now Alicent's like, no, I didn't. Oh, no, wait a minute. Maybe I have misunderstood something somewhere. You can kind of see that, like you say, I don't want to say doubt because she's so believing in everything she's been saying and the reason this whole war has started. Can you imagine if all this war's happened, all these children have died and everything that's happened has happened, all because you misinterpreted a quote you made?
Well,
holy crap, that's a lot to weigh.
I think that in that moment, she has a little bit of a panic because of that. I think in that moment when Rhaenyra, who she's known her entire life, they've been friends for all this time, starts to say that to her, she does have a moment of, oh, shit. What if she's right? Like, what did he say at the end? Well, he was, he's really not very with it. And as she's saying it, I swear her face is changing from this rock solid certainty of he said it, Rhaenyra. I've never, I've done some bad things, but I'm not a liar. And then it's kind of like, he was kind of in and out, and like you can almost see as she was saying that, like, oh, hang on. What if he was confused? Hang on a minute. What if he was talking about this prophecy that Rhaenyra's just said? And then she kind of snaps herself out of that back into, it doesn't matter. And I think that is the guilt and the kind of everything you just said, which is, what if? What if all of this has happened to now is my fault? No, it can't be that. Who would... If you've got an option...
Surely, it can't be that reason. That cannot be... It cannot all be my fault because I've just misinterpreted what was... No! Shit, could it? Yeah.
Because the other thing that's interesting, of course, is she then learned after... So she went to the king that time. He died, he said that, and she's like, okay, that's what the king wants. That's how she's interpreted it. But you remember she had that small council meeting, and they were all like, yeah, okay, well, we're ready with this anyway. And they're like, why were you planning for this? He literally just said it to me. And then she realised that the small council were ready to do this anyway. Like, they were ready to usurp Rhaenyra's claim anyway. And she was a bit like, oh, hang on a minute, that's fucked up. How many of you had this plan? Like, Otto was leading it, the Lannisters, they all had this nailed on, what they were going to do. Now,
that's true.
That, again, I think, because Rhaenyra says to her, like, you liar, how long had you all planned it? And she's like, I'm not lying. but she also knows that everyone there did have it planned. So she's like, oh, hang on a minute. If I did misinterpret this and I came in the room and basically just gave their plans justification, what if he hadn't said that to me? We'd still be in this same spot. So I think her mind's going like 1,000,000 miles an hour, but it does that almost.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Like,
because
like a self-protection thing, like a kind of I can't. I cannot comprehend that. Like I can't, because if that's true, and the king was talking to me about something I've misinterpreted, that means that child having his head cut off. Luke, who she lit that candle for Luke like last week, and like she obviously cared.
Yep.
All the children's deaths, everything that's happened, all the people who have died, and all the people that are about to die, is down to her. So her brain just went, nope, you're fine. She's full of it. Just get out of here.
I love that. Yeah. You need to leave like now. And as soon as we kind of have that moment, she's then very quickly like, okay, you need to leave now. You need to get out before you're caught. Get out, please. Fuck off. Yeah. Don't want to think about it anymore. Get out. Bye.
So, obviously Rhaenyra gets out. We like unless the next week's episode's like a real interesting escape from King's Landing.
Yes.
We're obviously going to assume that she gets away back out again, and Alicent obviously doesn't raise the alarm. But these two characters now have had this conversation. Where do you think that leaves them? Because Rhaenyra's going to have surely softened a little bit. That she's like, she isn't lying. She's got it wrong. Like, I can't be angry at her now. I don't know. Like, does that soften things? Or does it go, even though I think she realises she's got this wrong, she's going to carry on? Fuck, what do I do now? I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, because I don't imagine now that at any point this war is going to now just finish.
I can say safely, no. Next week's episode's titled A Dance of Dragons.
Which makes me think it's going to go bad.
Which is what the Chronicles of this era was called in the world of Westeros. So in Game of Thrones, which is probably a really good idea for your missus not to watch this, they actually spoil this show because Joffrey tells certain people all about what happens to Rhaenyra and stuff like that in an episode. And also, do you remember, I can't think of her name, the daughter of Stannis, who had the kind of, part of her face was sort of messed up. And she used to love to read. She taught the Onion Knight how to read. Do you remember her? He murdered his daughter. Remember, he burnt her. Stannis burnt his own daughter. Remember?
Oh yes.
Well, she had a book in an episode, and Stannis went to her, "Oh, what are you reading?" And she said, "Oh, I'm reading The Dance of Dragons," which was all about Rhaenyra and the war between Rhaenyra and Aegon. So.
Oh, that's pretty cool then.
Yeah. So in Game of Thrones, this is referenced. And huge spoilers. So if you're watching this and thinking, "Oh, I'm going to go back and watch Game of Thrones," you will have the spoiling of you will have the end of House of Dragons spoiled for you.
This is good because I don't remember it, so that is good.
Excellent. Good. Well, I'll tell you now then. Everybody dies. So everybody dead. Dragon fire everywhere, carnage, lot of death. And
rebuild Westeros from the ashes.
There's like one guy left standing. And we call him the Night King. No, there's a lot. There's a lot that is sort of there, which the TV are sort of adjusting, fleshing out, and I'm really enjoying it. They're doing it very well.
No, I agree with you. I've really enjoyed this show so far, and
that is everything I've got for this episode. Now, I've undoubtedly missed something along the way because every episode's so ram-packed. But is there anything you spotted that I've not discussed?
There's one scene that I absolutely loved.
Okay, man, what was that?
Where Baylor is going around on the dragon, and she spots Cole and his men in the field, And she's like, she has been told, whatever you do, do not engage with them, do not make it worse. And she gets back, I didn't engage. Technically, I didn't touch them.
Yeah, I love that. That was good.
I'm proper. They all need to go change their armour, but I didn't actually touch them.
Yeah.
But it's that moment where Sir Cold is like, we're exposed.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of a field. You've stopped us. We're exposed. And then he sees like just the real tiny shadow above them, and he's like, trees.
Yeah, trees, get
run.
The trees. Yeah, it was good. That was very good. I enjoyed that scene. But also she reports back, obviously they're on the march. That was an important part. So apologies that I didn't do that. But also
I just love that scene.
That reminds me of something else. That reminds me of something else that's really important. Rhaenyra sending things away. Rhaenyra sending away the younger children, the young dragons, and also the dragons' eggs, and is entrusting them all to a young. I can't think of her name. It's gone.
Rhaena.
Rhaena. Is it Rhaena?
Rhaena.
It is Rhaena. You're right.
Yeah.
Baela's the one on. Yeah. And
Baela stays. Rhaena goes. She's the one that they kind of. Oh, is she going to be the kind of... You are going to be the saviour, basically.
She's kind of pissed off. Yeah, she's kind of pissed off. I don't want to get sent away. I don't want to be like a wet nurse to these bloody kids. What the hell's going on? And then when she kind of realises that, actually, no, you're being entrusted with a big-ass responsibility, I kind of feel like she's a bit like, oh damn. Now I don't want this for a different reason. It's like,
I don't want to either. So basically they've sent her away with all the youngsters and the eggs and everything. Yeah. So if it all gets burned to the ground and goes wrong, she is going to be
in charge
the House Targaryen.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh damn. Okay, love, there's some responsibility for a young lady.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that was a lot. I think we're going to do this at the end of every episode from now on. Are you Team Black or Team Green after the first 3 episodes?
It's difficult because I don't really like. I think you have to be Team. Oh wait. Oh, I don't want to kind of justify to one side because if it all goes wrong, I like to flip flop between the two.
That's shocking. I am Team Black.
I am kneeling to the Queen. Okay, fine. I agree.
Yeah. Okay, everybody, that is our show. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate the support every week and all the messages we get in to discuss different theories, etc. on the show. Keep them coming. They're a lot of fun. I do reply. It just takes me a little while. So by the time the next show comes out, I would have replied, I promise. Except for about 20 of you, which I'm going to reply to today for last week. Sorry. There were a lot, and I appreciate it, but I'm tired. But yeah, thank you so much to everybody who gets in touch. You can find us on all the socials. The website is all the W's and stuffandthangspodcast.com. You can find our show on obviously on all the different podcast providers. You can also, if you want to chat to us, which seems to be very unpopular, but you can find us on Discord. I'll put the link to that in the podcast description. Until then, everybody, I'll let you say goodbye. I'll let you say goodbye first. I'm going to line you up to say goodbye because we're having this issue.
Should we say this? So we have a bit of an issue, whereas Alfie, who was the original podcaster with you, Alfie had this really cool "that's a wrap" at the end of every show.
He did, yeah.
And we talk about Star Wars, so therefore every Star Wars episode I just finished with "May the Force be with you."
Yeah, so
really easy, nice and easy that is. Yeah. And then every other show, I basically have not come up with my own catchline yet.
Well, I mean, I say take care, and I've said that ever since the very first show I did, which was nearly 350 podcasts ago.
Yeah, yours has always been until next week. Take care, and I was like, fine.
And you've heard that, and then on our last show together, after I said take care, what did you say?
Until next week, take care.
You literally copied me what I said. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. So basically, if you're listening to the show and you can think of a really good exit line for me, let me know. Email in and tell me what makes it. Because I get to the end of the episode and it's going, see ya, bye. You said, even like I go higher pitched. I don't know what happens. I just basically cannot think of a decent exit.
So goodbye from me. I'm in two minds. I'm in two minds whether just to say to you, look, man, just take care, and I'll ad-lib it.
That's your line. That's like me saying it's a wrap.
I'm also of the opinion that if you were to say "May the Force be with you" at the end of every show, it could be funny. Like the Star Wars fans listening to the Star Wars show would just like be fine with it, and every other fan listening to every other show just be like, "What?"
It's fine until we do a Lord of the Rings show, and I say "May the Force be with you," and your inbox would explode.
Yeah. To be fair, like if you said it on every show but Star Wars as well, that'd be hilarious. Like in Star Wars, you just like, live long and prosper at the end of it, and you just watch them explode. But look, we're going to end the podcast now. Okay, I'm gonna line you up, and then I'm gonna play the outro. Okay, so thank you everybody for listening. I really appreciate it. You all take care.
We'll be back.
Fucking hell.
Might I ask, Your Grace, if you are successful, well, when you are successful, what then?
We march on King's Landing and take the throne.
The throne?
It's a big chair made of swords.
Thank you for listening to the Stuff and Things podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. You can find us on Facebook or online. Simply search the Stuff and Things podcast to join in our conversation every week.